Hello everyone, if this is your first talk with us today, then welcome to the Sales Enablement Festival. And for those of you who've already been tuning in to our selection of talks, welcome back. We have so much more amazing content heading your way, but before we get back into it, we just want to take this moment to thank all our amazing sponsors and partners for bringing this virtual festival to life. We also want to thank you, our attendees, for joining us today. If you're enjoying the content from the festival, be sure to check out the SEC membership plans. It's here where you can gain access to exclusive content, research and frameworks, and discounts to things like our brand new workshop series and so much more. You can find more information about this over on the Sales Enablement Collective website. Don't forget to have your questions ready for the live Q&A at the end of this talk, as you'll have the chance to put them to the experts themselves. That's everything from me, so all that's left to do is sit back and enjoy this next talk.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. My name is Jerry Hurley, and I lead sales enablement globally for TripAdvisor's B2B business. I'm honored today to have been given the opportunity by the Sales Enablement Collective to share our approach to fast-tracking new hires to productivity. Over the next 20 minutes, I will give you an insight into our onboarding process for our SMB business unit, in the hope you might find some relevant learnings that could help enhance your own onboarding process. In addition, with such an esteemed group of enablement professionals tuning in, I'd love to pick up some learnings from you, either in the discussion afterwards or by contacting via LinkedIn or the SEC Slack channel. Finally, before I start, I would like to acknowledge that what I present today is the product of true collaboration of an amazing team at TripAdvisor, spanning my own mighty sales enablement team, through to our revenue operations, our go-to-market teams, our sales teams, and of course, all with the support of our inspirational leadership. Now, before presenting our onboarding model, I want to provide a bit of context. We are all acutely aware of the impact COVID has had and continues to have on our lives. In particular, the hospitality industry has had a very challenging 18 months, which in turn has had a dramatic impact on TripAdvisor. At our lowest point in the pandemic, we were down as much as 86% in revenue. As you can imagine, this required us to go into triage mode and to look at ways to weather this storm. This resulted in a significant reduction in force, with over 25% or close to 900 people leaving TripAdvisor, many furlough schemes for sales, a significant cost reduction program, a consolidation of our restaurant and hotel business units, and a shift in our sales motion from acquisition to support. Now, thankfully, the hospitality industry is resilient, and by the start of 2021, we were starting to see green shoots of recovery, massive pent-up desire to travel, and a global vaccination program that was accelerating a path to recovery. It was at this point we felt that it was the right time to start recruiting again, and set about the task of recruiting and onboarding over 128 new sellers to our global SMB business. And to put in context, that is an additional 30% headcount on where we were. This is where our sales enablement team enters the story, with a request from sales leadership for ramp, revenue, productivity, and all of this as soon as possible, with of course as little impact to their business. Now, I'm sure this is the type of request. This type of request is not new to many of you. In my experience, this is the type of problem statement sales enablement professionals often get. And while it is a great starting point, it's not ultimately really useful for us. You see, in my experience, sales leaders are very quick to say what they want as an outcome, but aren't quick to say what they want as activity that produces the outcome, because getting activity that produces the outcome is actually very scientific. When you think about it, it kind of makes sense. I believe most sales leaders in some shape understand enablement, but they are stronger at understanding deliver results and stronger at understanding drive people. They don't have time to sit and wait and develop because they're accountable, right? So you see that sales leaders have a much bigger tendency, particularly the successful ones, to just execute. They're not interested in stopping to think and design and ideate on performance. Now, that's where we as sales professionals have an opportunity. Actually, no, I'm going to go a little bit stronger and say we have a responsibility to come in and play our role. So before I start, a word of caution, right? The momentum to just execute for sales enablement is high. We want to jump in and help. We want to jump in and be busy and be doing great work. But sometimes we leap to action too soon. I call this jumping the gun. But what I've learned over the years is try not to do this. Rather, it's best to do two things. Baseline your data. So what does the ask mean in terms of activity? And get stakeholder buy-in. Get commitment from sales leaders and sales managers that they're going to hold their sales teams accountable to those activities. It's a symbiotic relationship. You need sales managers holding their reps accountable to those specific activities that drive revenue, and then you hold enablement accountable to develop the skills to create a spike in activity. So as outlined, we start with baselining our data. In conjunction with sales leaders, RevOps, and enablement, we established a set of activity metrics with the end goal of ultimately being able to generate or retain revenue faster than our prior ramp time of 6 months. We looked at historical data, pre-COVID of course, and reviewed what levels of activities and revenue successful reps were doing during their training period. We also kept in mind what we wanted a rep to generate coming out of training in order to be profitable at month 4 and drive more monthly recurring revenue than 2019 averages by the end of a 6-month period. So we defined metrics for the 2 main roles we were recruiting for: business development executives, your hunters or AEs, and customer success executives, your farmers or AMs. These metrics included talk time, daily activities in Salesforce, opportunities created over a week, of course monthly recurring revenue, service level adherence, call quality is determined by call reviews and adherence to our call flow, and behavioral feedback, how reps were engaging, attitude, etc. Now, having baselined our data and established a set of activities we believe were required to drive revenue and be productive, we mobilized a project team of people to help design and execute. This group comprises of a dedicated project manager from our go-to-market team, people ops and recruitment specialists, sales enablement professionals, revenue operations, and of course sales leadership. With a high velocity hiring plan, we needed new ways to onboard reps that were, one, scalable, 2, could fast track reps to productivity. And remember, we were aiming for 3 months from our traditional 6 months we'd seen previously. And number 3, that allowed us to quickly identify people at risk and take action. We rebuilt our onboarding plan to span 12 weeks, with the first 3 weeks focusing on a sales academy, equipping reps with the product, the system, and the process and sales skills required to be successful, and the remaining 9 weeks focused on sharpening these skills on the job in an incubator environment, which we called a training floor, where a dedicated team leader provides high levels of coaching and support to build activity and deliver revenue. To successfully graduate from onboarding and enter a productive team, reps must pass a number of formal control gates, hitting or exceeding set KPIs. So as referenced, having established the metrics, we set about mapping a ramp path across each role and function. We put in place 4 control gates at week 3, 4, 8 and 12, where there was a formal review of rep performance against the agreed metrics. A RAG status is used to assess progress, with green indicating they're hitting or exceeding KPIs and are good to proceed, orange that they are close and can proceed with coaching and a plan to address gaps, and red indicating a need to move to a short-term improvement plan or exit. We set expectations up front in interviews, in contracts, and throughout the sales academy that we were a performance-driven organization, and to be successful, they needed to meet or exceed set KPIs. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to proceed. We also aligned our control gates to coincide with probationary periods. Using Tableau in a self-service capacity, our RevOps team built reporting that showcases performance to benchmarks trended weekly by role, by team and region. Now, while having robust reporting that both reps and team leaders can use is fantastic, we also needed to build a cadence of utilizing the reporting to drive performance conversations and corrective actions. With that in mind, we created some tools to support our team leaders manage performance. These included a behavioral scorecard they could use to assess engagement, participation, attitude, openness to feedback, etc., so we could assess the how as well as the what. A tracker tool to track rep performance across all KPIs week on week, and a weekly feedback loop to share best practice, identify blockages, and validate performance conversations will take place. A key success factor of the RAMP program is the 9 weeks training floor run by the team leaders. Most of these were new team leaders promoted from the business. So to support them, we developed a skill-based training program to give them the essential skills and practical tools to build, coach, and lead new hire cohorts successfully through our onboarding program. We utilized a flipped classroom model with the team leaders completing bite-sized e-learning training independently during working hours in a schedule to suit themselves, and we brought them together in facilitated classrooms to do live problem solving and application of that learning. We utilized micro-learning, all mobile-based, utilizing our learning platforms Lego and EdApp. Finally, as a project team, we met to review how each cohort of hires is performing on average, pinpointing areas of progress and concern. In fact, we are currently undergoing a Six Sigma Lean project to help understand why we're seeing variance in performance across recent cohorts. So, how did we do? Remember, our goal was to ramp the SMB sales team back up, adding an additional 128 headcount and ensuring quality training across the product portfolio, focus coaching, all with the aim to get reps, to get revenue as soon as possible. So here you can see to date, we have put 111 new hires through the program. We've exited 10 that didn't make it. In terms of activity, we're exceeding benchmarks for average daily activities, opportunity creation and save rates. And we're now able to understand days to sale, with the first sale coming in an average around 28 days from the start of the program. Focusing on acquisition in terms of net monthly recurring revenue signed, new hires are generating as much by month 4 as tenured reps. And we're now starting to see that new hires are generally more productive than tenure reps in terms of greater levels of activity. So, in conclusion, up until we implemented this process, we did not have a good handle on performance of new hires, nor did we track progress in a systematic way throughout a sales rep's training period. We've now operationalized the ability to manage and measure key sales productivity metrics that ultimately drive revenue and/or convert opportunities into signed deals, and have created a platform for sales to have conversations, right, with their teams around why or why not they're able to generate revenue. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Yeah, Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to present to us. Yeah, so we do have some time now for some questions. So if anyone does have any questions for Jerry, please feel free to drop them into the chat and we'll get around to answering them. So the first question here has come from James, who said, is the program centrally managed by Enablement or something you train sales team leads to do themselves?
Yeah, great question, James. The answer is both. The program is 12 weeks in duration. And what we do is our sales enablement team globally manage the first 3 weeks we call the Sales Training Academy. And they're tasked with equipping reps with the product, process, and sales skills required to sell our products. And then for the remainder 9 weeks, we have trained sales team leaders to actually coach and drive productivity over those 9 weeks. And they work in conjunction with the sales enablement team across those 9 weeks. What was key for us was in the past, we just did the Sales Training Academy, and we were finding that we were getting very inconsistent performance in terms of reps, depending on the manager they got to and the span of control of the manager. For this particular initiative, we took specific people from the business and said, your responsibility is to mind these people across the 9 weeks. And that's been extremely successful.
Awesome. Yeah, good answer. So the next question is, how long did this whole process take?
So the ramp period for each cohort is 12 weeks, as I outlined. We kicked off this process in, I think it was the 24th of May this year. And we have been running successive cohorts nearly every consecutive 3 weeks, right, since then to ramp to our current headcount. We're still ongoing. I think you saw we're at about 110, we're short. And we've got a couple of more. In fact, we've got training happening today. We've a couple of more to complete by year end, but we're nearly there.
Nice. So next question here from Paul is, what other KPIs would you analyze the onboarding to screen if it's getting the wished output?
So what other KPIs would we include outside of what we got? Is that the question?
Yeah, so what other KPIs would you analyze the onboarding to screen if it's getting the wished output?
I'm not sure we would add additional KPIs at this time. What we've got is we think we've got the activity KPIs that drive performance. We're starting to see success on supporting reps ramp to those KPIs. And what we are doing though is we are starting to see, interestingly, some variance in performance of different cohorts that came in. So we're starting to look, and we're running a lean or Six Sigma project around analyzing the variance to understand what is driving a variance in terms of the performance of a rep that came in June versus the performance of a rep that came in August. And there are many different factors in there. So we're trying to determine, and I think that might drive a new set of KPIs. For instance, we might change our recruiting bar. We might help equip our managers to be better at interviewing. We might look at how our leads are assigned. So we're still in that process of trying to figure out, I suppose, the answer to that question.
Awesome. So the next question here has come from Victoria, who said, what is the structure of your sales enablement team, i.e. what are the main roles?
Yeah, we're split probably into So our sales enablement team is aligned behind our different business units. So we've got 3 different sales, or 4 different sales functions we're supporting, but primarily we've got trainers, an instructional designer, and people involved in communications and in supporting our systems and tools.
Nice. So next question from Jessica, who said, how did you get the buy-in from your managers for the role and their responsibilities? Sorry, for the role they play and their responsibilities.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's taken me a lifetime to figure out the answer to that, so I don't have an easy answer. But as I outlined early on, it was critical. So we sat down with the business, all right? We explained the impact of how landing an additional 100 people into the business on top of an already stretched sales team was going to actually erode current revenue. So we were able to articulate an argument and show them the data that if we continue to work the way we were doing prior to this, we would end up significantly degrading our production. It wasn't an easy conversation. It took a number of months to get everybody aligned. But once everybody was aligned, our sales leadership were just amazing. They doubled down into this. They sit in on weekly status updates and calls as part of our project management team to validate how are we tracking, where are the gaps, and what we need to do to improve. So it's in answer. It took time, and we used data and impact to show the effect if we didn't address it.
And next question here from Mike has asked, are you measuring the sales leaders, and if so, how, to drive a culture of coaching?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what we've done through the sales development, what we've done through our new hire ramp is we've created this role of sales development lead. What we did to support these new sales managers is we put together a sales management development program, a mini kind of tactical program focused on how they performance manage, how they have difficult conversations, how to use KPIs, how they pipeline and forecast, and how they coach. And what we've done is that's been extremely successful. We are now looking to scale that out to all of our managers globally and building out a sales management process so that we can give them really good guidelines and support going into 2022.
Hope that answers your question, Mike. So next question here from James is, how much authority does enablement have in the performance management side? Do you ever clash with sales leaders in suggesting people should be managed out?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I wouldn't say clash. I think we have some interesting discussions. The beauty about the process we've put in place, we have an amazing revenue ops team working in conjunction with our sales leaders. We were able to give really good visibility into sales performance. So we're able to show, and the data doesn't lie. So by presenting the data, it's almost a compelling case to say, look, at the data is suggesting that this rep is not hitting and has been underperforming for a while. What is the support, or what support do you need, or what's the plan to address? And I think it's a collective, right? Ultimately, it's owned by sales leaders, but we can provide them with the data and the structure to address gaps. So hopefully that answers your question.
Sure it does. So the next question here is from Katharina, who said, following up on your first answer, how long did it take to train the leaders to ensure the proper onboard new hires?
Yeah, it was a bit of, they were thrown in the deep end. So it was because we were moving fast, we couldn't kind of stop and train them first and then, let them get loose. So what we did is, as we were bringing new hires in, we initially got them to sit in on the training academy, so they really understood what was being done from a sales enablement perspective and how they could reinforce that. And they got to actually influence the agenda on what we were training and identify gaps in some of that training that we were able to correct. We then actually ran a series of workshops across probably a 8 to 10 week period, using 1 hour a week, where we focused on developing their skills. And rather than kind of train them per se, we actually created bite-sized e-learning content where they flipped the classroom, where they actually did all the work, on their own, and came together to collectively discuss and role play how they would deal with different instances. So we were able to use live data from the reps they were actually coaching. Not the ideal scenario, but it was very fruitful, very beneficial, and we got great feedback on how we're going to refine that into the next iteration for our broader sales team.
Nice. And the final question here from Susan is, how long did it take to design and build the program for execution? How many people were on the project team?
There was a small army of people, so I wouldn't do justice if I went, but think about this in terms of we had people from go-to-market, a PM, we had people from revenue ops, we had our sales enablement specialists, we had sales leaders, we had our sales development leads, our team leaders feeding into this. So I think the program, we had a lot of the content for the 3 weeks sales academy already, and we refined that, but we are constantly tweaking and learning over each cohort around how we reinforce and support across the 9 weeks. So it's an ongoing journey. But there was and I'm sorry, I forgot a group of people, our recruitment people who are amazing at sourcing talent and bringing them through, and of course our sales leaders and sales managers. So at any one time in a meeting, we would have at least 10, 12 people on our weekly status updates.
Awesome. Nice. So yeah, that does in fact bring us to time. I know someone did ask if they could get access to the slides. If you do have any questions for Jerry, or would like to continue the conversation, or would like to kind of request more information, please feel free to reach out to him over on LinkedIn, and I'm sure that he'll be more than happy to answer any questions over there. With that said, Jerry, thank you so much for taking the time to present, and to everyone that tuned in, thank you so much, and we will see you all very soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.